In a world where the mind never stops talking and the heart never gets a moment to rest, most people forget the simplest truth. Peace is not something you find outside, it's something you build inside yourself. And the more you hold on to what hurts, the further you drift from that peace. So today, give yourself permission to pause, to breathe, to look at your life with a little more honesty and a little less pressure. You don't have to fix everything. You don't have to force anything. You only need to understand what your heart has been trying to tell you. In this video, we're going to slow down together. We're going to explore 7 Buddhist self-care habits that help you love yourself again, release the weight you were never meant to carry, and finally return to a life that feels lighter, clearer, and calmer. 1. Practice gentle awareness. Sit with yourself without judgment. Most people spend their entire lives running not because they are weak, but because they were never taught how to sit with their own feelings. They run from emotions that feel too heavy, from memories that hurt, from past mistakes they don't want to face, and sometimes from the simple discomfort of being alone with their thoughts. The mind becomes a noisy room, and instead of trying to understand it, you try to escape it. But Buddhism teaches a powerful truth. You do not heal by running away from yourself. You heal by turning inward with gentle awareness. Gentle awareness is the act of sitting with yourself the way you would sit with a friend who is hurting, patient, compassionate, and without judgment. When you close your eyes, breathe slowly, and simply allow your thoughts to appear without pushing them away or grabbing onto them, something beautiful happens. You begin to see that your thoughts are not permanent. They rise and fall like waves. You notice that emotions, no matter how intense, soften when you stop fighting them. You discover that even the thoughts that scare you lose their power when you face them with softness instead of fear. In this practice, you learn that your mind is not your enemy. It is not trying to punish you. Every thought, even the painful ones, is your mind's way of trying to protect you from danger, disappointment, or uncertainty. But the mind is often clumsy. It overreacts, exaggerates, repeats old stories, and creates new fears out of habit. When you observe these thoughts from a distance, like clouds drifting across the sky, you realize you don't have to believe everything your mind says. You don't have to accept every judgment, every fear, or every negative message as truth. Loving yourself begins the moment you give yourself permission to simply exist exactly as you are. You don't force your thoughts to be positive. You don't rush your emotions. You don't pretend to be strong when you are tired inside. You sit with your feelings gently, the same way you would sit with a child who is crying with patience, understanding, and reassurance. You let your mind speak, and instead of reacting, you listen. This act alone dissolves so much inner pain. Awareness without judgment is one of the greatest acts of self-love. It teaches you that you are allowed to have messy thoughts, confusing emotions, and imperfect days. It teaches you that healing isn't about controlling your mind, it's about understanding it. When you stop beating yourself up for how you feel, you create emotional space. That space becomes peace. That peace becomes clarity, and that clarity becomes the foundation of your healing. Awareness is not weakness. Awareness is courage. Sitting with yourself, quietly and honestly, is one of the strongest things you will ever do. It is the first step toward letting go of emotional baggage and returning to the person you were always meant to be, calm, grounded, and deeply connected to yourself. 2. Release the attachment that causes suffering. One of the deepest truths in Buddhism is that pain is inevitable, but suffering is optional, and suffering begins the moment you cling to something that life is trying to move you away from. Most people don't realize how much of their inner pain comes not from what happened, but from their refusal to let go of what happened. You don't suffer because someone walked away. You suffer because you still hold on to the idea of how things should have been. You don't suffer because life changed. You suffer because a part of you cannot accept that things are no longer the way they used to be. Attachment makes you hold on to memories as if they are the present, hold on to people as if they cannot change, and hold on to expectations as if life owes you certainty. Buddhism teaches that attachment is the silent creator of suffering, because nothing in this world is permanent, not relationships, not emotions, not situations, not even the version of yourself you were yesterday. When you attach yourself tightly to something temporary, you eventually experience the pain of losing it, because all things in life move, shift, transform, or fade. The problem is not that things end. The problem is that your heart tries to freeze them in time. When you cling, you break. When you hold too tightly, life has to rip things away. When you resist change, you only deepen your wounds. Releasing attachment does not mean you stop caring. It does not mean you become cold, emotionless, or distant. It means you learn to love without chaining the person to your expectations. It means you learn to experience life without trying to control every outcome. It means you allow things to flow instead of forcing them to stay. Letting go becomes easier when you understand that you cannot lose what is truly meant for you, and what is not meant for you cannot be held, even with both hands. When you detach gently, you make space for new blessings to arrive. You create emotional freedom. You stop replaying old stories that bring you pain. You stop arguing with reality. You stop trying to go back to a version of life that no longer exists. You begin to feel lighter, softer, and more open to change. You start to trust life instead of fearing it. Attachment pulls you backward, but letting go allows you to walk forward with dignity and peace. Letting go also means releasing the attachment to old versions of yourself, the mistakes you made, the decisions you regret, the moments you wish you could rewrite. These attachments create shame, guilt, and self-criticism that can last years. When you begin to detach from the past, you realize you do not have to punish yourself forever for things you did when you didn't know better. You understand that growth requires forgiveness. You cannot become your future self if you keep holding on to your past self. The moment you release attachment, something incredible happens. You stop suffering over things you cannot change. Your heart becomes open again. Your mind becomes clear. Your spirit becomes calm. Life begins to flow naturally, without tension or resistance. You start to feel the quiet truth that everything you are losing is leading you toward everything you are meant to gain. Letting go then becomes not a painful act, but a deeply loving one. 3. Treat yourself with loving kindness, metta, every single day. Most people grow up learning how to care for others, how to comfort friends, how to support family, and how to be gentle with someone who is hurting, but almost no one learns how to treat themselves with that same tenderness. We live in a world where being kind to others is praised, but being kind to yourself is misunderstood as weakness or selfishness. Yet Buddhism teaches that true peace begins when you turn inward and offer yourself the warmth, compassion, and understanding you have always given to others. This is the practice of metta loving kindness, and it is one of the purest forms of self-care you can ever learn. Loving kindness means recognizing that you too are human. You too feel tired. You too make mistakes. You too deserve patience. But most people speak to themselves with harsh words they would never say to anyone else. They criticize themselves for feeling emotional. They judge themselves for not being perfect. They call themselves names in moments of insecurity. They punish themselves for being human. This internal cruelty becomes a habit, and it silently destroys confidence, happiness, and inner peace. Imagine a friend comes to you crying. You would never say, "You're useless. Why are you like this? You should be stronger." You would comfort them, listen to them, reassure them, and remind them they are doing their best. Loving kindness asks you to do the same for yourself. Instead of saying, "I'm such a failure," you say, "I'm learning, and that's okay." Instead of saying, "I should be over this," you say, "Healing takes time." Instead of saying, Nobody loves me, you say. I deserve love, including my own. These small changes create a big shift inside your mind, a shift from self-attack to self-support. The truth is, your inner voice shapes your entire emotional world. If your inner voice is harsh, your life feels heavy. If your inner voice is calm and caring, your life begins to soften. Metta teaches you that changing how you speak to yourself is one of the most powerful ways to change how you feel. It helps you understand that you don't need to earn your own kindness. You deserve it simply because you exist. When you practice loving kindness daily, you begin to notice how your body relaxes more, your heart feels lighter, and your thoughts become gentler. You stop demanding perfection from yourself. You start embracing your flaws as part of your humanity. You start accepting that you are allowed to rest, allowed to cry, allowed to slow down, allowed to grow at your own pace. You realize that self-love is not about flattering yourself or pretending everything is fine. It is about standing with yourself even when things are difficult. Over time, this habit of treating yourself with compassion changes the way you experience life. You stop relying on others for validation because you learn to validate yourself. You stop breaking down from criticism because you learn to comfort your own heart. You stop feeling unworthy because you deeply understand that you, just like everyone else, were born deserving of love, patience, and care. Loving kindness becomes a shield around your spirit. It protects you from the cruelty of your own mind. It teaches you to stop being the person who hurts you the most. When you learn to love yourself gently and consistently, you build an inner foundation so strong that no storm can completely break you. You begin to move through life with more confidence, more grace, and more peace, because the relationship you have with yourself becomes your greatest source of strength. 4. Accept what you cannot control to free your heart. One of the greatest sources of human suffering is the constant fight against things we cannot change. We spend so much of our energy trying to control outcomes, people, situations, and even emotions that were never in our control to begin with. We want people to treat us a certain way. We want life to follow our plans. We want the world to behave according to our expectations. And when it doesn't, we feel frustrated, disappointed, or broken. Buddhism teaches a powerful truth that can transform your entire emotional world. Peace begins when you stop forcing life to be something it isn't and start accepting it for what it is. Acceptance does not mean giving up. It does not mean being passive or weak. It means choosing not to fight unnecessary battles that drain your energy and break your spirit. It means recognizing that some things in life are simply beyond your control, no matter how much you try, no matter how much you care, no matter how tightly you hold on. When you accept this, you stop torturing yourself with the illusion that you can fix everything, save everyone, or predict the future. You allow yourself to breathe again. Many people struggle because they continue arguing with reality. They replay old conversations, wishing they had acted differently. They cling to expectations that never came true. They try to change people who don't want to change. They fight to undo situations that cannot be undone. This creates emotional exhaustion, anxiety, and pain. Acceptance teaches you that instead of pushing against life, you can choose to flow with it, and in that flow, you find clarity and relief. When you begin accepting what you cannot control, you reclaim your inner power. You redirect your energy away from impossible battles and toward the things you can change: your attitude, your actions, your thoughts, your responses, and your inner growth. You stop worrying about how people see you and start focusing on how you see yourself. You stop trying to change the past and start creating a better present. You stop living in fear of the future and start grounding yourself in this moment where real life is actually happening. Acceptance also means letting go of questions that have no answers. Why did this happen? Why did they leave? Why wasn't it enough? These questions trap your mind in endless circles of pain. Acceptance gently whispers, you don't need every answer to move forward. You just need to trust that life isn't finished with you yet. When you adopt this mindset, you stop trying to solve everything and start learning how to live again. In Buddhism, acceptance is an act of compassion. Compassion for yourself, because you stop blaming yourself for things that were never your fault. Compassion for others, because you understand that everyone is fighting their own battles, shaped by their own experiences. Compassion for life, because you recognize that every ending, every change, and every challenge has a purpose that you may not understand right now, but will become clear later. When you embrace acceptance, your heart becomes lighter. You stop forcing outcomes and allow blessings to arrive naturally. You stop clinging to old wounds and make space for new healing. You stop resisting change and begin to see it as a doorway to growth. Life becomes softer, more peaceful, and surprisingly kind when you stop fighting with it. Acceptance doesn't remove all difficulties, but it removes the unnecessary suffering you create by trying to control the uncontrollable. This is how you free your heart, not by making life perfect, but by making peace with the fact that it never will be. And even in that imperfection, you can find a deeper, stronger, more unshakable peace. 5. Let go through breath. The body frees what the mind can't. There are moments in life when your mind becomes so crowded, so overwhelmed, so heavy with thoughts, that it feels impossible to find clarity. Your mind holds memories from years ago, regrets you never resolved, fears about the future, and pressure from every direction. And the more you think, the more tangled everything becomes. This is because the mind's nature is to cling, to replay, to analyze, to compare, to predict, to worry. Sometimes, no matter how hard you try, the mind simply refuses to let go. But Buddhism teaches something incredibly profound. The breath can release what the mind cannot. Your breath is the bridge between your mind and your body, between your past and your present, between chaos and peace. When your thoughts feel uncontrollable, your breath becomes the key that unlocks the door to calmness. When your heart feels heavy, your breath becomes the soft hand guiding you back to balance. Most people underestimate how powerful breathing truly is because it seems too simple and too ordinary. But the truth is, your breath has been with you since the moment you entered the world. It has carried you through every challenge, every emotion, every rise and fall. It is the one tool you always have with you, yet often forget to use consciously. When you breathe deeply, you signal to your nervous system that you are safe. Your heart rate slows. The tension in your muscles begins to soften. The mind stops spiraling and starts settling. This is not magic, it is biology, it is mindfulness, it is healing. Think about how you breathe when you're stressed. Fast, shallow, tight. Your body follows your thoughts. If your mind is tense, your breath becomes tense. But what most people don't know is that the reverse is also true. If you change your breath, you change your mind. When you breathe slowly and deeply, you send a message to your mind. It's okay. We are safe. We can let go now. And your mind listens. Letting go through breath is a gentle process. You don't have to force anything. You simply sit or lie down, close your eyes, and breathe in deeply. With each inhale, imagine you are gathering strength, clarity, and peace. With each exhale, imagine releasing a small piece of the burden you've been carrying, a fear, a worry, a painful memory, a thought that has been looping endlessly. Slowly, breath by breath, the heaviness begins to dissolve. This is how the body frees what the mind cannot. Sometimes you don't need answers. Sometimes you don't need advice. Sometimes you don't need the situation to change. You just need to breathe slowly, intentionally, deeply, until your mind returns to the present moment. Because that is where life actually happens. Not in the past you keep replaying, and not in the future you keep fearing. The breath brings you home to this moment, the only moment where healing is possible. Breath reminds you that you are not your thoughts, you are not your fears, you are not your stress. You are the awareness behind all of it, calm, steady, and unshakable. When you practice mindful breathing regularly, you begin to notice that your emotional reactions become softer, your worries lose their grip, and your mind becomes clearer. You stop getting pulled into every thought, and you start observing them with distance and wisdom. Breathing also helps release stored emotional tension from the body. Many people don't realize that the body remembers what the mind tries to forget. Stress settles in the shoulders, sadness sits in the chest, anxiety tightens the stomach, old emotional pain gets trapped in the muscles. When you breathe deeply, you create movement inside the body, allowing these emotional blockages to loosen and flow out. This is why sometimes a deep breath brings tears. The body is releasing pain you've carried silently for years. Letting go through breath is a daily practice, not a one-time event. Some days the breath feels easy, other days it feels tight or shaky. But every breath is progress. Every slow inhale is a step toward clarity. Every long exhale is a step away from suffering. You start to realize that healing doesn't always require big external changes. Sometimes all it requires is the courage to sit with yourself and breathe. Over time, this practice becomes your safe place. Whenever life feels overwhelming, you know you can close your eyes and return to your breath. Whenever your mind feels loud, you know you can quiet it by breathing intentionally. Whenever emotions rise too quickly, you know your breath can anchor you. It becomes the gentle reminder that no matter what is happening outside, you can always find peace inside. This is why Buddhists say, the breath is the doorway to freedom, because it teaches you that letting go is not an event. It is a moment-by-moment choice to return to yourself, to calm your mind, and to release what your thoughts cannot carry anymore. 6. Practice non-resistance. Stop fighting life. Flow with it. One of the greatest causes of human suffering is the silent, constant, exhausting fight we have with life. It is not always the situation that hurts us, it is our resistance to what is happening. It is the way we argue with reality inside our own mind. We tell ourselves, this shouldn't have happened. They shouldn't have treated me this way. Life should have been different. Why is this happening now? And with every internal fight, we create more and more suffering. Buddhism teaches that non-resistance is the key to emotional freedom, not because life becomes easier, but because you stop fighting battles that only exist in your mind. Non-resistance does not mean you stop caring about your life. It does not mean you accept disrespect or tolerate injustice. It does not mean you become passive or helpless. It means you stop wasting your emotional energy trying to force life to follow your script. It means you recognize that the world will not always move according to your timeline, your desires, or your expectations. It means you stop breaking your own heart by demanding that life be perfect, predictable, and painless. When you stop resisting, you begin to see life clearly, not as you wish it to be, but as it truly is. People suffer because they want life to stay still. They want relationships to stay the same. They want people to act according to their expectations. They want situations to unfold exactly as they imagined. But nothing in this world is static. Everything is in motion. People grow, emotions shift, circumstances evolve, seasons change. Pain happens when you cling to how things used to be or how you hoped they would be. Non-resistance teaches you to let life move without trying to hold it down. It teaches you to flow with change instead of fighting it. Think about water. Water does not argue with the rocks in its path. It does not complain when its direction shifts. It does not resist obstacles. It simply flows around them, calmly and naturally. And yet water shapes mountains, carves valleys, creates rivers, and sustains life. This is the power of non-resistance. gentle, peaceful, flexible, but unbelievably strong. When you adopt this mindset, you stop feeling crushed by every challenge. You learn to move with life instead of exhausting yourself by pushing against it. Most people don't realize how much of their stress comes from resisting emotions. When sadness appears, they push it away. When fear arises, they try to bury it. When anger surfaces, they pretend it doesn't exist. But emotions are like visitors. The more you resist them, the longer they stay. Non-resistance teaches you to allow emotions to flow through you without attaching stories, judgments, or shame. If sadness comes, you say, "I feel sad right now," and allow it. If fear comes, you say, "This fear is here," and observe it. If anger comes, you breathe and let the fire pass. When you stop fighting your emotions, they soften, they move, they heal. Life becomes painful when we insist that things must be a certain way. This relationship must work. This plan must succeed. This person must behave differently. This path must be the right one. These musts create emotional prisons. They trap you inside expectations that life did not promise to meet. When you practice non-resistance, you replace must with maybe, and suddenly the world opens again. Maybe this ending is redirecting me. Maybe this difficulty is strengthening me. Maybe this disappointment is protection. Maybe this is not the end, but the beginning of something I cannot see yet. With non-resistance, your mind becomes spacious. Your heart becomes softer. Your spirit becomes wiser. Non-resistance is also about learning not to force people. You cannot force someone to love you. You cannot force someone to change. You cannot force respect, loyalty, maturity, or effort. When you stop trying to control others, you free both them and yourself. You allow relationships to be natural instead of stressful. You stop dragging connections that have already ended energetically. You stop expecting people to give what they have never learned to give. You stop breaking yourself trying to fix what isn't your responsibility. This kind of inner freedom is life-changing. Resistance creates tension in the body. It tightens the jaw, stiffens the neck, knots the shoulders, and weighs down the chest. Non-resistance brings relaxation. Your body finds ease. Your breath becomes deeper. Your mind becomes clearer. You begin to notice that so much of your suffering had nothing to do with the situation it came from the mental pressure of trying to control something uncontrollable. When that pressure releases, even slightly, your entire inner world begins to change. Non-resistance also teaches you to trust timing. People often panic when things don't happen instantly. They feel anxious when waiting, restless when uncertain, desperate when progress seems slow. Resistance to timing creates fear and frustration. But when you stop fighting the pace of life, you begin to understand that delays are not punishments, silence is not abandonment, and obstacles are not failures. Sometimes life slows down because you are being protected. Sometimes life closes a door because a better one needs preparation. Sometimes nothing is happening because you are being prepared. Non-resistance helps you stop forcing outcomes and start trusting the journey. Another important part of non-resistance is accepting the truth without sugarcoating it. Many people suffer because they refuse to call a situation what it really is. They hold on to a relationship that died long ago. They keep trying to fix friendships that no longer exist in spirit. They hold on to jobs they hate. They replay past mistakes they cannot undo. They live in memories instead of the present. Non-resistance teaches you to see clearly. This is how it is right now, not how it used to be, not how you wish it were, not how someone promised it would be, but how it is. This clarity saves you years of emotional suffering. When you stop resisting reality, you stop creating extra pain on top of the natural pain of life. Natural pain is unavoidable loss, disappointment, endings, change. But resistance adds unnecessary suffering, denial, anger, self-blame, fear, overthinking, expectations. Non-resistance removes the unnecessary layer of suffering. It doesn't erase challenges, but it makes them easier to face because you are no longer fighting your own mind. As you practice non-resistance, you begin to live with more peace. You start to understand that not every fight deserves your energy. Not every situation requires control. Not every emotion needs suppression. Not every plan needs force. You learn to respond calmly instead of reacting impulsively. You learn to step back instead of pushing forward mindlessly. You learn to slow down instead of panicking. Life becomes softer when you stop wrestling with it. The beauty of non-resistance is that it gives you back your power. Instead of being dragged by life, you move with intention. Instead of drowning in emotions, you surf them gently. Instead of breaking under pressure, you bend like bamboo. Instead of fighting the storm, you become the stillness inside it. Non-resistance does not make you weak, it makes you unshakable. Nothing can break a person who is not at war with life. When you flow with the present moment, even when the present moment is difficult, you discover a deeper kind of strength, a quieter kind of courage, a wiser kind of peace. This is the heart of non-resistance. You stop fighting life, and life stops fighting you. You flow, and in that flow, you find freedom. 7. Protect your peace like it's sacred. Not everyone deserves access to you. In life, you will meet many people, experience many situations, face many storms, and walk through many environments. But the one thing that will follow you everywhere is your inner state, your peace, your emotional space, your mental clarity, your spiritual energy. Most people never realize how delicate, precious, and powerful this inner space truly is. They spend their lives giving everyone access to it, even people who drain them, even people who disrespect them, even people who leave them anxious, confused, or empty. Buddhism teaches that one of the highest forms of self-love is learning to protect your peace with the same seriousness you protect your physical safety, because your peace is the foundation of your entire life. You cannot live a calm life with a chaotic heart. You cannot grow spiritually when you allow toxic energies into your space. You cannot feel light and grounded if you keep giving access to people who disturb your balance. Protecting your peace does not mean isolating yourself from the world. It means being wise about who deserves to enter your inner world. It means understanding that not everyone you care about is good for your mental health. It means learning to love people from a distance if they bring more pain than peace. And it means choosing yourself not in a selfish way, but in a soulful way. Many people believe that choosing peace means avoiding problems or running away from life. But the truth is the opposite. Protecting your peace requires deep courage. It requires honesty. It requires disappointing others to stay true to yourself. It requires walking away from relationships that drain your spirit, even if you still care about the person. It requires setting boundaries, even when your voice shakes. It requires saying no without over-explaining. It requires letting people misunderstand you rather than letting them disturb your peace. This is not weakness, this is emotional strength at its highest level. Think of your peace as a flame. If too many winds touch it, it will flicker and eventually die out. This is what happens to people who give access to everyone. They become emotionally exhausted, spiritually drained, mentally scattered, and physically tired. Their minds race, their hearts ache, their days feel heavy, their nights feel restless. And deep inside, they know why, because they keep letting people, situations, and responsibilities enter their life without asking, does this nourish my peace or destroy it? Protecting your peace means becoming the guardian of your inner flame and refusing to let random winds blow it out. The truth is, not everyone deserves access to your heart. Not everyone deserves to know your dreams, your insecurities, your fears, or your pain. Not everyone deserves to be part of your healing journey. Some people only want to take. They take your energy, your attention, your kindness, your patience, and in return they give you stress, confusion, guilt, or emptiness. Buddhism teaches that every soul carries its own energy. When someone's energy clashes with yours, it will create turbulence inside you. Protecting your peace means choosing environments, relationships, habits, and conversations that feed your spirit, not drain it. Many people harm their own peace by trying to please others. They say yes when they feel no. They carry responsibilities that were never theirs. They tolerate behaviors that slowly break their spirit. They allow disrespect because they fear being alone. They apologize for things that weren't their fault. They keep people in their life because their heart is soft, even when those people have already shown they cannot be trusted with your emotional safety. But the moment you begin protecting your peace, you stop seeking approval from others. You stop allowing guilt to control your decisions. You stop sacrificing your emotional well-being just to keep someone else comfortable. You begin to honor yourself. Protecting your peace also means becoming comfortable with solitude. Many people cling to chaotic relationships simply because they fear being alone. But solitude is not emptiness. Solitude is clarity. Solitude is where you hear your own thoughts instead of absorbing everyone else's noise. Solitude is where your spirit breathes, heals, and reconnects with its own truth. In Buddhist teachings, solitude is not loneliness. It is a sanctuary where you realign your energy, strengthen your mind, and rebuild your sense of self. When you learn to enjoy your own company, you stop letting just anyone into your life, because you understand the value of your inner space. Boundaries are another essential part of protecting your peace. A boundary is not a wall to keep people out. It is a gate that you open selectively. Boundaries are a form of self-respect. They tell the world, I value my peace, I value my time, and I value my energy. Without boundaries, people will take advantage of your kindness, drain your compassion, and use your emotional softness for their own benefit. Setting boundaries does not make you rude. It makes you wise. It makes you strong. It makes you balanced. It teaches others how to treat you and teaches you what you will no longer accept. Protecting your peace also requires emotional detachment from unnecessary drama. You don't have to respond to everything. You don't have to involve yourself in every conflict. You don't have to prove your point to people committed to misunderstanding you. You don't have to fix every situation or heal every person. Sometimes, silence protects you better than words. Distance heals you faster than confrontation. And walking away gives you more clarity than staying and fighting. Peace grows when you stop reacting to every little thing that tries to pull you into chaos. There is another form of resistance that people overlook. Resisting the version of yourself that life is asking you to become. You cannot protect your peace if you remain attached to an older version of yourself, the version that accepted disrespect, apologized too much, tolerated toxic energy, or avoided boundaries. Protecting your peace means evolving. It means upgrading your mindset. It means becoming someone who refuses to return to emotional spaces that once hurt you. You stop going back to what broke you because you love yourself too much now to repeat old cycles. Peace requires selective energy. It requires choosing who you allow near your inner life. It requires recognizing when someone's presence starts to cost you your mental well-being. Some people bring warmth, clarity, inspiration, healing, and comfort. Others bring confusion, jealousy, gossip, tension, or emotional heaviness. One of the highest forms of wisdom is understanding which is which, and one of the highest forms of self-love is acting accordingly, even if it hurts, even if it disappoints someone, even if it feels unfamiliar. Protecting your peace also means stopping the habit of overthinking other people's opinions. The truth is, Most people don't even know themselves deeply, so their judgments about you mean nothing. When you stop giving weight to others' opinions, you stop carrying unnecessary emotional baggage. You stop living for validation and start living for authenticity. You stop draining your energy trying to fit an image that isn't yours. You begin feeling lighter, freer, and more aligned with your true self. At its core, protecting your peace means choosing the life your soul feels safe in. It means choosing relationships that feel supportive, not draining. It means choosing environments that feel grounding, not chaotic. It means choosing routines that nourish your inner world, not destroy it. It is an act of self-respect, self-awareness, and emotional maturity. When your peace becomes your priority, everything changes: your decisions, your relationships, your reactions, your boundaries, your energy, your entire emotional landscape. And here is the deepest truth. The moment you choose peace, your whole life begins to shift. People who are not aligned with your peace will fall away. Situations that once drained you will lose their power. Your clarity will sharpen. Your energy will rise. Your emotional world will stabilize. You will stop feeling guilty for choosing yourself. Your heart will feel lighter. Your mind will feel quieter. Your spirit will feel stronger. You will realize that peace was not something you needed to find, it was something you needed to protect. This is the final and highest Buddhist habit. Guard your peace like it is sacred, because it is. And once you protect it, everything else in your life finally begins to fall into place. Return to the present moment. Heal the pain created by an overactive mind. If there is one thing that quietly steals your happiness more than anything else, it is the mind's habit of leaving the present moment. Your mind spends most of its time in two places that do not exist anymore: the past and the future. The past holds your regrets, heartbreaks, mistakes, betrayals, losses, and memories you revisit again and again, even though they cannot be changed. The future holds your fears, anxieties, expectations, what-ifs, and worst-case scenarios that exhaust you before they even happen. This constant mental traveling pulls you away from the only place where peace, strength, and clarity actually exist: the present moment. Buddhism teaches that suffering begins when the mind wanders away from what is and starts obsessing over what was or what might be. The present moment is simple, quiet, and peaceful. But the mind prefers drama, stories, and illusions. The mind loves to replay conversations from years ago, imagine outcomes that will never happen, overanalyze other people's behavior, and create problems that don't even exist. This is not because the mind is evil, it is because the mind is wired to protect you. But in its attempt to protect you, it often creates new suffering. Returning to the present moment is the habit of gently pulling yourself away from these mental storms and coming back home to what is real, what is happening now, and what is within your control. When you return to the present moment, you break the mental loop that exhausts you. You stop feeding the stories that drain your energy. You stop giving attention to worries that have nothing to do with reality. You stop fighting with shadows. You stop bleeding from wounds that no longer exist. You notice your breath. You feel your body. You observe your surroundings. You realize that at this very moment, you are safe. You realize that right now, there is no danger. Right now, there is no enemy. Right now, life is not attacking you. It is only your thoughts that are. The mind creates storms that the present moment does not contain. The mind loves to drag you into the past because the past is familiar. Even painful memories can feel comfortable because you know them. But living in the past keeps you stuck in emotional cycles that no longer serve you. You cannot heal if you keep revisiting the wound. You cannot grow if you cling to an older version of yourself. You cannot move forward if you keep trying to rewrite history in your head. The past is a teacher, not a home. When you return to the present moment, you gently tell yourself, "What happened is over. I cannot change it. but I can change what I do right now. This simple realization frees you from years of emotional suffering. The future is another trap. The mind imagines every possible disaster, every possible failure, every way things could go wrong. It tells you stories that have no evidence, no grounding in reality. It creates anxiety by making you believe you must be prepared for every outcome. But thinking about the future does not give you control, it steals your peace. It makes you forget that the future is shaped by what you do now, not by the fear you hold about what might happen. The future becomes lighter when you stop trying to live it in your mind. It becomes clearer when you take it one moment at a time. Returning to the present moment does not mean ignoring your past or being careless about your future. It means not letting either of them control your emotional state. It means recognizing that the only place where you have real power is right here, right now. You cannot change what happened yesterday. You cannot control what will happen tomorrow. But you can control your breath. You can control your thoughts. You can control your responses. You can control your attitude. You can control how you show up today. This is where healing begins, not in the past, not in the future, but in this moment. One of the most powerful ways to return to the present moment is through mindfulness. Mindfulness is not a complicated spiritual technique. It is simply the art of paying attention. When you drink water, you taste it instead of rushing through it. When you breathe, you feel the air entering and leaving your body. When you walk, you notice each step instead of drowning in thoughts. When you talk, you listen fully instead of preparing your next reply. When you rest, you allow yourself to rest instead of worrying about what comes next. Mindfulness turns ordinary moments into peaceful experiences. When the mind wanders, and it will, you gently bring it back. You don't get angry. You don't criticize yourself. You don't demand perfection. You simply notice, my mind wandered, and return to your breath, your body, and the present moment. This gentle returning builds emotional strength. It teaches your mind that it does not need to run. It does not need to predict everything. It does not need to protect you from imaginary threats. It can simply be here, now. Coming back to the present moment also allows you to feel life again. Many people don't realize that they are not truly living. They are breathing but not alive. They are moving but not present. They are thinking but not experiencing. They rush through life like they're trying to win a race. They scroll through days without noticing the sunrise, the breeze, the sound of birds, the kindness of strangers, or the beauty in small things. When you slow down and return to the present moment, life becomes richer. Colors look brighter. Conversations feel meaningful. Food tastes better. Your body relaxes. Your mind softens. You reconnect with the world around you instead of getting lost in the world inside your head. Returning to the present moment is also a powerful way to break the cycle of emotional overthinking. When you feel overwhelmed, anxious, or scattered, it is almost always because your mind is too far from the present. You're either stuck in a memory or worried about a future possibility. But the moment you anchor yourself in the now, the intensity of your emotions decreases. Anxiety loosens its grip. Fear becomes smaller. Stress loses power. You realize that most of your suffering was created by thoughts, not reality. And thoughts are not facts. They are temporary mental events passing through the mind. Buddhism teaches that the present moment is your true home. It is where your inner peace lives. It is where your clarity waits. It is where your healing begins. It is where your strength grows. When you practice returning to the now, you train your mind to stop running, stop resisting, stop exaggerating, stop worrying, and simply be. This being is the essence of peace. It is the essence of freedom. It is the essence of life. There is a deep truth hidden in this habit. The present moment is never as painful as your thoughts about it. The present moment is almost always manageable. It is the mind that multiplies the suffering. When you stay here, you stay calm. When you stay here, you stay grounded. When you stay here, you stay alive. Returning to the present moment is not a one-time realization. It is a lifelong practice. You will forget. Your mind will wander. Old habits will return. But every time you catch yourself drifting and you gently return to your breath, you build inner peace like a muscle. Your mind becomes a friend instead of an enemy. Your emotions become waves instead of storms. Your life becomes lighter, softer, and more beautiful. The world becomes different when you are present, not because the world changed, but because you change the way you meet it. You meet life fully instead of half asleep. You meet love deeply instead of fearfully. You meet challenges calmly instead of desperately. You meet yourself honestly instead of through illusions. This is enlightenment in the simplest form, a quiet mind resting in the present moment. Protecting your peace means returning to this moment again and again until it becomes your natural home. Because right here, right now, everything is okay. Right here, right now, you are alive. Right here, right now, you are safe. And right here, right now, you have the power to begin again. Release the need for approval, free yourself from the opinions of others. One of the deepest forms of suffering in human life comes from the constant, silent, exhausting desire to be liked, accepted, and validated by others. From childhood, you learn to measure your worth through other people's reactions, parents, teachers, friends, society, relatives, and later, strangers, partners, and co-workers. You are taught to be good, to be polite, to behave, to fit in, to not upset anyone, to be what others want you to be. Without realizing it, you begin shaping your personality around what will please others rather than what is true to your soul. Buddhism teaches that one of the greatest acts of self-love is learning to release this need for approval, because there is no freedom deeper than living life on your own inner terms. The truth is, no matter how kind you are, someone will misunderstand you. No matter how humble you are, someone will judge you. No matter how honest you are, someone will doubt you. No matter how loving you are, someone will take you for granted. And no matter how hard you try to be perfect, someone will still find a reason to criticize you. This is not because you are flawed. It is because every person sees the world through the filter of their own experiences, insecurities, traumas, expectations, and beliefs. Their opinion of you is not a mirror. It is a reflection of their inner world. Once you understand this truth deeply, you stop trying to control how others see you. Seeking approval is a form of emotional imprisonment. You adjust your behavior to avoid conflict, even if it hurts you. You silence your truth just to maintain harmony. You over-explain yourself because you fear being judged. You feel guilty for choosing your own needs. You apologize for things that are not your fault. You accept treatment that damages your peace because you don't want to seem difficult or dramatic. But every time you betray yourself to win someone else's approval, you lose a part of your inner freedom. Slowly, you become a version of yourself that feels disconnected, drained, and unsure of who you truly are. Releasing the need for approval does not mean becoming rude or uncaring. It does not mean living without compassion. It means understanding that your worth is not determined by how people react to you. You stop basing your value on how many people praise you, agree with you, or validate you. You begin to stand in your truth without asking for permission. You learn that self-respect is not negotiable. You learn that inner peace matters more than external validation. You learn that people's opinions change constantly, but your soul stays with you forever. The fear of being disliked often comes from childhood wounds. Maybe you were punished for expressing your feelings. Maybe you were told to be quiet. Maybe you had to earn love by being good. Maybe you felt ignored unless you performed well. These early experiences shape your adult behaviors. You grow up believing that love must be earned, that acceptance is fragile, that your worth depends on pleasing others. Buddhism teaches that healing begins when you recognize these patterns and gently release them. You begin to understand that you do not need anyone's approval to exist peacefully. When you stop chasing approval, something profound happens. Your authenticity returns. You begin to speak honestly without fear. You stop pretending to be strong when you are hurting. You stop hiding your emotions. You stop lowering your standards. You stop shrinking yourself to make others comfortable. You stop chasing people who no longer value you. You stop explaining your worth. You begin choosing relationships that feel equal and healthy instead of draining and one-sided. You learn that the right people will accept you without needing to be convinced. People who constantly seek approval often feel anxious because they are always calculating how others might perceive them. They overthink every word, every gesture, every decision. They fear making mistakes. They fear disappointing others. But when you let go of this need, your anxiety decreases dramatically. You breathe more freely. You walk more confidently. You make decisions based on truth instead of fear. You realize that the right people will stay and the wrong people will leave, and neither outcome changes your worth. Releasing approval also means accepting that you cannot control others' judgments. People will judge you whether you are silent or outspoken, generous or distant, soft or strong. They will judge your choices, your lifestyle, your beliefs, your past, your appearance, your personality, even your healing journey. But their judgment belongs to them, not to you. When you internalize this, you stop giving away your peace so easily. You stop letting comments break you. You stop letting opinions define you. Your emotional world becomes calmer because you stop fighting battles that were never yours to fight. Buddhism teaches that suffering begins when we cling. When you cling to approval, your happiness depends on something outside your control. But when you let go, your happiness returns to you. You become the master of your own peace. You choose who you want to be without outside pressure. You become grounded in your own identity. You stop needing applause to feel good about yourself. You stop needing reassurance to trust your decisions. You stop needing permission to follow your path. Letting go of approval also transforms your relationships. Instead of forcing yourself to be liked, you allow connections to form naturally. You stop pretending. You stop performing. You stop begging for attention. You stop bending your boundaries. You stop chasing people who drain you. You stop fearing rejection because you realize rejection is simply redirection. You begin attracting people who resonate with your truth, not with your mask. These relationships feel healthier, calmer, deeper, and more meaningful because they are built on authenticity instead of fear. This habit also teaches you how to honor your boundaries without guilt. When you stop seeking approval, you start prioritizing your emotional well-being. You say no when something doesn't feel right. You walk away when you feel drained. You express your needs openly. You stop tolerating disrespect. You distance yourself from chaos. You choose peace over pleasing. You choose honesty over fitting in. You choose self-respect over comfort. This is how you reclaim your power. The greatest freedom in life is not financial freedom, physical freedom, or social freedom. It is emotional freedom. And emotional freedom begins the moment you stop basing your self-worth on other people's opinions. When you release the need for approval, your confidence grows naturally. Your inner voice becomes stronger. Your intuition becomes clearer. Your decisions become bolder. Your mind becomes quieter. You stop living for the world and start living for your soul. And here is the deepest truth of all. People's opinions about you say everything about them and nothing about you. Their insecurities, their wounds, their perspective, their fears, their expectations, their projections. None of it defines you. None of it belongs to you. None of it determines your path. When you release the need for approval, you reclaim your peace. You reclaim your identity. You reclaim your emotional space. You reclaim your voice. You reclaim your life. You become someone who moves with confidence, softness, clarity, and truth. You realize that you were never supposed to please everyone. You were only supposed to become yourself. This is the final Buddhist habit. To free yourself from the prison of opinions, so you can walk through life with an open heart, an unshakable mind, and a peace that cannot be taken away by anybody. Forgive yourself, fully release the burdens your heart was never meant to carry. There is a kind of suffering that is deeper than heartbreak, heavier than disappointment, and more silent than loneliness. It is the suffering you carry inside yourself when you refuse to forgive yourself. Most people forgive others easily, sometimes even too easily, but they remain brutally hard on themselves. They carry guilt from years ago, shame from mistakes they made when they didn't know better, self-blame for outcomes they couldn't control, regret for words they said in moments of pain, and disappointment in themselves for not being the person they think they should have been. They walk through life holding an invisible weight on their shoulders, a weight that Buddhists call self-inflicted suffering, suffering caused not by the world, but by your own refusal to let yourself be human. Forgiving yourself is one of the hardest forms of forgiveness, not because you are unworthy, but because your mind clings to the past. The mind replays old memories repeatedly, convinces you that you should have known better, that you shouldn't have trusted, that you should have walked away sooner, that you should have been stronger, that you should have been wiser. These shoulds become emotional chains. They trap you in moments that are already over. They force you to relive mistakes that can no longer be changed. They prevent healing. They create inner conflict. They make you treat yourself like an enemy instead of a friend. But Buddhism teaches a profound truth. You cannot change the past, but you can change the relationship you have with it. Your past is not a life sentence. It is a lesson. Your mistakes are not your identity. They are experiences that helped shape you. Every wound taught you something. Every wrong turn redirected you. Every failure humbled you. Every loss opened your eyes. Every disappointment taught you what you needed to protect your future self. When you refuse to forgive yourself, you reject the wisdom hidden inside those experiences. When you forgive yourself, you finally begin to see the meaning behind everything you once called mistakes. Self-forgiveness requires deep honesty. It requires looking at yourself without judgment. It requires admitting where you were wrong, not to punish yourself, but to liberate yourself. It requires acknowledging your pain without becoming consumed by it. It requires accepting that you were doing the best you could with the awareness, emotional capacity, and understanding you had at the time. It requires compassion, real compassion, not the soft kind you give others, but the courageous kind you give yourself when your mind is attacking you the most. Most people don't forgive themselves because they think forgiveness means letting themselves off the hook. They believe that if they forgive themselves, their mistake becomes okay. But that's not true. Forgiveness does not erase responsibility. It ends unnecessary suffering. It doesn't rewrite what happened. It rewrites how you carry it. It doesn't mean you forget. It means you learn, grow, and move forward without dragging the weight of your past into your present. You cannot become your future self if you are chained to your past self. You cannot evolve if you cling to guilt. You cannot rise if you keep punishing yourself. You cannot find peace if you keep blaming yourself for things that shaped you but no longer define you. Self-forgiveness is not about pretending nothing happened. It is about understanding that your pain was part of your path, not a detour, not a failure, but a necessary chapter that taught you something precious about life, love, boundaries, trust, strength, or truth. Forgiving yourself also means forgiving the version of you who tolerated things you shouldn't have tolerated. The version of you who stayed in situations too long. The version of you who didn't know how to speak up. The version of you who accepted less than you deserved. The version of you who kept trying to fix people who weren't ready to be helped. The version of you who didn't understand your worth. You don't need to hate that version of yourself. You need to embrace them, thank them, heal them, and let them rest. They were doing their best with the level of awareness and strength they had at that moment. Guilt and shame often come from not being able to let go of the image you created of who you should be. You believed you should have always been wise, strong, calm, confident, and perfect, but you're human. You learned through mistakes. You grew through pain. You evolved through trials. You became who you are because of everything you've lived through. Your past self did not fail you. They brought you to this moment. The moment where you are finally aware enough to heal. Self-forgiveness requires gentleness. It requires patience. It requires letting yourself unravel without punishment. It requires sitting with your past without drowning in it. When you hold your hand to your heart, breathe deeply, and whisper, "I forgive you," you begin releasing a weight you have carried for years, maybe even your whole life. When you forgive yourself, you unclench the tightness in your chest, you soften the heaviness in your spirit, and you begin to breathe like someone who deserves peace again because you do. Buddhism teaches that true forgiveness is recognizing that everything is impermanent. Your past is impermanent. Your mistakes are impermanent. Your guilt is impermanent. You don't have to carry these things forever. Your heart was not built to hold this much pain. Your spirit was not designed to be weighed down by old stories. You deserve to move freely into the future, but you can only do that when you remove the emotional chains around your heart. Forgiving yourself also means valuing your growth more than your guilt. It means acknowledging how far you've come, instead of punishing yourself for where you've been. It means celebrating that you survived things that broke you. It means appreciating that you are healing, even when the process feels slow. It means honoring the resilience inside you that your mistakes helped build. It means understanding that self-forgiveness is not the end of healing, it is the beginning. The greatest tragedy of self-blame is that it keeps you stuck in a moment that no longer exists. It keeps you tied to a version of yourself you have already outgrown. It keeps you living inside a wound that has already taught you its lesson. Self-forgiveness is the act of unlocking that prison. It is the moment you decide, "I deserve to move forward." It is the moment you take your power back from the past. It is the moment you choose to live instead of merely surviving. And here is the deepest truth you must understand. Your heart has punished itself enough. It's time to release yourself. Forgiving yourself does not mean forgetting. It means remembering with wisdom instead of pain. It means carrying knowledge instead of guilt. It means keeping the lesson and letting go of the suffering. It means loving yourself even when you feel unlovable. It means giving yourself the kindness you have always given to others. It means finally allowing yourself to be human fully, imperfectly, beautifully human. When you forgive yourself, everything changes. Your mind becomes quieter. Your emotions become lighter. Your relationships become healthier. Your decisions become clearer. Your confidence becomes stronger. Your inner peace becomes real. You begin showing up in the world with softness instead of self-criticism, with courage instead of shame, with strength instead of regret. Self-forgiveness is not a weakness. It is a return to your true self. It is a return to your innocence. It is a return to your worth. It is a return to your inner peace. And it is the greatest gift you can ever give to your own soul. Stop absorbing other people's pain. Protect your spirit from emotional contamination. There is a quiet suffering that most people never talk about. It is not the pain caused by your own life, but the pain you absorb from others without realizing it. You carry the emotions of the people around you, their stress, their anger, their sadness, their negativity, their chaos, their disappointments, and their unhealed wounds. You take responsibility for the moods of others. You try to fix people who refuse to fix themselves. You try to make everyone happy, even when it drains your own soul. You become a healer to everyone except yourself. Buddhists call this emotional contamination, when your inner world becomes polluted by energies that were never yours to carry in the first place. This habit silently destroys your peace, unless you learn to protect your spirit with wisdom and boundaries. Many people suffer not because their life is difficult, but because they are constantly absorbing the emotional turbulence of those around them. You may notice your mood suddenly shift after talking to someone negative. You might feel mentally heavy after listening to someone complain for hours. You might take on the sadness of someone who is not willing to seek healing. You might feel anxious because someone else is living in chaos. Sensitive hearts often become emotional sponges, soaking up the pain of people they care about. But Buddhism teaches that true compassion does not mean carrying another person's suffering inside yourself. It means offering support without sacrificing your inner stability. Emotional boundaries are not walls that block love. They are filters that protect your peace. When you don't set these boundaries, you become vulnerable to absorbing every emotion around you. You start believing that you are responsible for the happiness of others, responsible for calming their storms, responsible for fixing their problems. But this belief leads to exhaustion, resentment, burnout, and emotional collapse. You were never meant to save everyone. You were never meant to carry the weight of other people's inner wars. You were never meant to sacrifice your peace to maintain someone else's comfort. Loving others does not mean destroying yourself in the process. One of the deepest forms of emotional suffering comes from trying to heal people who have no intention of healing themselves. You stay up late comforting someone who repeatedly chooses the same destructive patterns. You offer advice to someone who refuses to change. You give energy to someone who only takes and never gives. You try to rescue someone who doesn't want to be rescued. You drain yourself trying to be the anchor for someone who keeps pulling you into their storm. Buddhism teaches that compassion without wisdom becomes self-destruction. Helping others is noble, but losing yourself while doing it is unnecessary suffering. There are people who will constantly unload their emotional baggage onto you because they have not learned how to carry it themselves. They see your kindness as a container for their pain. They treat your heart like a dumping ground for their unresolved emotions. They use you as an emotional escape, not realizing that every time they leave pieces of their darkness behind in your spirit. You begin to feel tired, confused, and drained without understanding why. Protecting your peace means recognizing when someone is using your compassion as a place to hide from their own responsibilities. It means realizing when your support is actually enabling their avoidance rather than helping their growth. You must understand this truth deeply. Being a kind person does not mean you have to be an emotional landfill for others. You are allowed to step back. You are allowed to disconnect. You are allowed to preserve your energy. You are allowed to say, "I care about you, but I cannot carry this for you." That does not make you cold. That makes you wise. Your soul is not meant to absorb every storm that passes by. The more emotionally open you are, the more important it becomes to protect your inner world. Sensitive and empathetic people often struggle the most because they feel everything so deeply. They pick up unspoken emotions. They sense tension in the atmosphere. They feel pain in someone's eyes, even when that person says, "I'm fine." They absorb negativity without noticing it. But sensitivity is not a weakness, it is a gift. However, like all gifts, it requires protection. A sensitive heart must learn boundaries to survive. Without boundaries, you drown in emotions that are not your own. Buddhism teaches that the most powerful protection is awareness. When you become aware of your own emotional state, you can clearly see when someone else's energy begins to enter you. You feel the shift. You feel heaviness that wasn't there before. You feel agitation that doesn't belong to you. You feel sadness that didn't come from your own thoughts. Awareness allows you to pause and choose whether to absorb or let go. You learn to say, "This feeling is not mine," and you let it pass through you without holding it. This simple awareness prevents emotional contamination from taking root in your spirit. Another essential practice is non-attachment to other people's emotional reactions. You are not responsible for how others feel. You are not responsible for their moods. You are not responsible for their insecurities. You are not responsible for the trauma they refuse to heal. When you internalize other people's emotions, you lose your spiritual balance. You start carrying burdens that were never yours. You start apologizing for things you didn't do. You start changing yourself to prevent others from being upset. This is emotional slavery. Buddhism teaches you to remain compassionate but detached, to care without absorbing, to love without losing yourself, to listen without carrying the weight of what you hear. Protecting your peace also means stepping away from negativity without guilt. Some people bring calm energy, others bring chaos. Some people lighten your spirit, others darken it. Some conversations leave you peaceful, others leave you mentally exhausted. When your inner world begins to feel disturbed after interacting with someone, that is not a coincidence, that is your intuition warning you. Do not ignore it. Your energy is your life force. When someone repeatedly drains it, you must distance yourself, even if you care about them. Distance is not rejection, it is self-respect. When you stop absorbing other people's pain, your emotional life undergoes a powerful transformation. You begin to feel lighter, your mind becomes clearer, your anxiety decreases, your sleep improves, your emotions become stable. You feel more grounded in yourself. You feel more connected to your own needs, your own feelings, your own truth. You begin to live from a place of inner alignment instead of emotional reaction. You finally understand that peace is not something you find, it is something you protect. You also become a better support to others when you protect your own energy. When your inner cup is full, you give from a place of strength, not depletion. When your spirit is grounded, your presence becomes healing instead of draining. When you stop internalizing others' emotions, you can guide them with clarity instead of carrying their pain. This is the essence of compassionate wisdom, helping others without destroying yourself. There is a powerful Buddhist teaching that says, "You are responsible for your energy. Others are responsible for theirs." This is the boundary that creates inner liberation. This is the truth that frees you from emotional suffering. This is the habit that allows your soul to breathe again. When you stop absorbing the world's pain, you begin to experience life as it truly is, calm, spacious, peaceful, and beautiful. You begin to meet people from a place of love instead of fear. You begin to help from a place of clarity instead of emotional exhaustion. You begin to love without losing yourself. You begin to feel alive again. Protect your spirit. Not everyone deserves access to your emotional space. Not every story deserves to enter your heart. Not every storm deserves to pass through your mind. You are allowed to choose what you hold and what you release. You are allowed to protect your inner world fiercely. You are allowed to say, "This is not mine to carry." And when you finally learn to stop absorbing other people's pain, you discover one of the greatest forms of peace, a peace that is steady, grounded, and untouched by the noise of the world. Let life unfold without forcing trust, the timing of your journey. One of the greatest sources of human pain is the constant desire to control life. You want things to happen faster. You want people to behave a certain way. You want your healing to speed up. You want success to arrive immediately. You want clarity without confusion, endings without pain, growth without discomfort, and blessings without patience. Without realizing it, you begin to fight life every single day, pushing, forcing, rushing, demanding, But Buddhism teaches a deeply liberating truth. Life unfolds at its own pace, and when you stop forcing outcomes, you discover a level of peace that cannot be found anywhere else. Most people never learn how to let life unfold naturally. They are taught to chase, to hustle, to compete, to control, to predict, to always stay ahead. They measure their progress by comparing their life with others. They create mental deadlines for everything. I must heal by this time. I must achieve this by this age. I must have this kind of life by this year. When reality does not match their timeline, they feel like failures. They feel behind. They feel unworthy. They feel anxious. They believe life is not moving, when in truth, life is simply moving at its own perfect pace. Forcing life creates suffering. It creates tension in the mind, stress in the body, and heaviness in the heart. When you force outcomes, you try to control things that were never meant to be controlled. You try to manipulate situations that are not ready. You try to pull blessings toward you that are still being prepared. You try to drag people into your journey who are not meant to walk with you. All of this creates emotional turbulence. Your spirit becomes restless. Your mind becomes loud. Your heart becomes exhausted. You lose your sense of inner peace because you keep trying to make life something it is not. Letting life unfold does not mean giving up. It does not mean abandoning your goals or ignoring your responsibilities. It does not mean sitting still and waiting for miracles. It means allowing things to happen without desperation. It means working hard without attachment to the outcome. It means taking steps without expecting instant results. It means trusting that what is meant for you will come and what is not meant will leave. It means moving through life with openness instead of tightness, with patience instead of pressure, with trust instead of fear. Every season of your life has a purpose. Some seasons are meant for growth. Some are meant for rest. Some are meant for learning. Some are meant for healing. Some are meant for healing. Some are meant for building. Some are meant for beginning again. When you force life, you try to skip seasons. You rush through periods that were meant to strengthen you. You avoid challenges that were meant to shape your character. You search for shortcuts instead of allowing the journey to develop you. But when you stop forcing and allow the seasons to unfold naturally, you grow into the person you were always meant to become slowly, steadily, deeply. Trusting the timing of your life is one of the highest spiritual practices. It requires humility, the humility to accept that you are not in control of everything. It requires patience, the patience to wait without anxiety. It requires surrender, the surrender to release your grip and let life move. And it requires faith, not blind faith, but inner faith that the universe, God, or life itself is working in your favor, even when you can't see the full picture. When you let life unfold, you begin to notice signs you were too rushed to see before. Solutions appear naturally. Opportunities come without forcing. The right people arrive without chasing. You receive answers at the perfect moment. You feel guided instead of stressed. Synchronicities begin to happen. Things fall into place. Life becomes softer because you are no longer fighting against its flow. You are moving with it, allowing it, trusting it. A flower does not bloom faster because you pull on its petals. A river does not flow smoother because you demand it to speed up. The sun does not rise more beautifully because you insist it shine earlier. Everything in nature moves with patience. Everything in nature honors timing. Everything in nature unfolds into its full beauty, but only when it is ready. Buddhism teaches that you are no different. Your healing, your growth, your breakthroughs, your relationships, your inner peace, all of them unfold at the right time, not when your mind demands it. So much suffering comes from trying to rush healing. You want the pain to disappear immediately. You want the sadness to leave today. You want closure now. You want clarity instantly. But healing is not an on-demand process. It takes time. It takes layers. It takes reflection. It takes breaking down and rebuilding. When you allow healing to move at its own pace, you stop judging yourself for not being better yet. You stop feeling guilty for still hurting. You stop expecting yourself to be superhuman. You realize that healing is not linear. It spirals, shifts, pauses, and continues. When you stop forcing yourself to move on, you give your heart the time it needs to truly let go. The same is true for relationships. Forcing love never creates real connection. Forcing people to stay only creates resentment. Forcing someone to see your worth only creates disappointment. Love that is meant for you will not require force. It will flow naturally. It will grow willingly. It will feel peaceful, not pressured. When you let relationships unfold naturally, you allow room for truth, the truth of compatibility, the truth of timing, the truth of who is meant to be in your life. When you force relationships, you hold on to illusions. When you allow them, you hold on to reality. Life becomes gentle when you trust timing. You stop comparing your path to others. You stop feeling behind. You stop doubting yourself. You stop rushing. You stop panicking. You start breathing. You start noticing. You start appreciating. You start receiving. Your heart becomes lighter. Your mind becomes calmer. Your energy becomes aligned. You begin to understand that everything you have lost, everything that fell apart, everything that didn't work out, it was all part of a larger alignment, guiding you to something more meaningful. Letting life unfold is an act of surrender, but it is also an act of strength. It is the strength to release what is not meant for you. It is the strength to walk away from chaos. It is the strength to trust unseen possibilities. It is the strength to believe that your life is not off track. You are exactly where you need to be, learning what you need to learn, becoming who you need to become. Buddhism teaches that when you stop forcing life, life reveals itself to you. Answers arrive in silence. Growth happens in stillness. Progress appears slowly, then suddenly. You realize that the universe is not ignoring you. It is preparing you. It is cleansing you. It is positioning you. It is removing what cannot go with you. It is shaping you into someone capable of holding what you prayed for. When you stop forcing, you allow life to do this work without resistance. There is a beautiful inner peace that comes from finally letting go of control. You wake up in the morning without fear. You move through the day without rushing. You make decisions from clarity, not from desperation. You stop worrying about the future because you trust that you will meet it prepared and supported. Your heart becomes grounded in the present moment. You realize that things do not need to happen quickly to be meaningful. They just need to happen at the right time. Your journey is unfolding exactly how it needs to. The delays are protection. The rejections are redirection. The confusion is preparation. The waiting is alignment. The slowness is refinement. Nothing in your life is happening too late. Nothing is happening too early. Everything is arriving right on time, even the lessons you didn't want to learn, even the endings you weren't ready for, even the blessings you feel unprepared to receive. Let life unfold, without rushing, without forcing, without fear, without pressure. Trust that what is meant for you will come in a form far more beautiful and peaceful than anything you could have forced. This is one of the highest forms of spiritual maturity, learning to trust the timing of your own unfolding. As you reach the end of this journey, pause for a moment and breathe. Not a shallow breath, but a deep, slow, gentle breath that reminds you that you are alive, that you are here, that you are present. Let your shoulders loosen. Let your mind quiet. Let your heart soften. You have traveled through lessons of awareness, self-kindness, letting go, acceptance, patience, non-resistance, peace protection, emotional boundaries, freedom from opinions, self-forgiveness, and trust in life's timing. These are not just teachings, they are doorways, doorways back to yourself. You have carried so much for so long. You have held pain you never deserved. You have forgiven people who never apologized. You have stayed strong for others while breaking inside. You have woken up on days when your spirit felt heavy. You have kept going when everything inside you wanted to stop. And through it all, you forgot something important. You forgot to be gentle with yourself. You forgot to pause. You forgot to breathe. You forgot that you, too, deserve the love you constantly give to everyone else. These Buddhist habits are not meant to transform your life in one day. They are meant to slowly reshape the way you walk through the world. They help you soften your reactions, calm your mind, and reconnect with the quiet strength already inside you. The peace you are searching for has never been outside. It was never in people or outcomes or achievements or perfection. It was always inside you, buried beneath overthinking, tension, fear, expectations, noise, and emotional fatigue. The more you let go of what harms you, the more clearly your inner peace rises to the surface. If there is one truth you take with you today, let it be this: you do not need to be perfect to be at peace. You do not need to control everything. You do not need to fix everyone. You do not need to have all the answers. You do not need to force your life into a straight line. You only need to return to yourself again, and again, and again. Return to your breath. Return to your awareness. Return to your heart. Return to this moment. Because this moment is the only place where peace lives. You are learning to love yourself. You are learning to let go of the weight you no longer need to carry. You are learning to protect your energy without guilt. You are learning to forgive your past self and honor your present self. You are learning to trust the timing of your life. You are learning to stop absorbing everyone else's storms. You are learning to free yourself from the opinions that once controlled you. You are learning to become your own safe space. Healing is not loud. It is quiet. It happens in small moments, when you choose to breathe instead of react, when you choose to walk away instead of fight, when you choose to rest instead of push, when you choose to release instead of cling. These small choices shape your emotional world more than any dramatic breakthrough ever could. So as you walk forward from here, carry these truths with you gently. Carry them like seeds. Plant them in your daily life, not with force, but with softness. Practice them when your mind grows loud. Practice them when your heart feels heavy. Practice them when life becomes confusing. Practice them when you feel lost. Over time, these seeds will grow into something powerful, a deep, unshakable peace that no one can take away from you. Remember, you deserve peace. You deserve clarity. You deserve softness. You deserve rest. You deserve happiness. You deserve forgiveness. You deserve the freedom that comes from letting go. And above all, you deserve a life where your heart feels light and your mind feels quiet. May you walk gently. May you walk wisely. May you walk in peace.